You knew the answer an hour ago. You'd said it out loud, easily, in the hallway before the interview, or the exam, or the big presentation, in front of a mirror or a friend who nodded along. Then the actual moment arrived. The real pressure landed, and it was simply gone, not sitting on the tip of your tongue struggling to surface, just gone, replaced by a blank, faintly panicked static where a clear answer used to be. An hour later, walking out, completely calm again, it comes right back, easy as ever, like it never left. The common, everyday explanation is some version of nerves. You psyched yourself out. You weren't mentally tough enough for the moment. Or maybe you simply hadn't prepared as thoroughly as you thought you had. And the gap just showed up at the worst possible time. The fix people reach for is almost always the same, too. Try harder to stay calm next time. Will yourself through it with more discipline. Grit your way past the anxiety by sheer force of effort. Except this happens to extremely well-prepared people constantly, which is exactly the detail that just nerves alone doesn't explain. Elite athletes who've drilled the exact same move thousands of times in practice still miss it in the final seconds of a real, watched game. People who know material cold, who could recite it half asleep, still blank completely on a test question they could have answered easily in casual conversation the day before. Something considerably more specific than generic anxiety or a lack of grit is actually going on here. Neuroscientist Amy Arnsten's research, built over decades of animal and human studies, shows that acute stress floods the brain with catecholamines, chemical messengers like norepinephrine and dopamine, and at high enough levels, these chemicals specifically and measurably impair the prefrontal cortex, the region responsible for careful, deliberate, working memory-based thinking. At the very same moment, that same stress response strengthens more reflexive, older, automatic circuits in the brain instead. Under real acute pressure, your brain is quite literally trading slow, deliberate thought for a faster, more primitive kind of reaction. Psychologist Sian Beilock found that for tasks that lean heavily on working memory, solving multi-step math problems, recalling specific facts under time pressure, holding several pieces of information in mind at once while reasoning through them, pressure works by consuming that same limited working memory capacity with anxious worry and constant self-monitoring instead. And counterintuitively, the people it hits hardest aren't the weakest performers in the room. It's the people who normally have the highest working memory capacity precisely because they're the ones relying on it the most under ordinary, low-pressure conditions. For well-learned physical skills, though, a golf swing, a free throw, a musical passage you've played hundreds of times without thinking about your fingers, Beilock found a genuinely different second mechanism entirely. Pressure causes excessive conscious attention to the fine mechanics of something that normally runs almost entirely on trained automaticity, and that extra scrutiny itself is exactly what disrupts the skill. Not too little focus in that moment. Too much of the wrong kind, aimed squarely at a process that has always worked better left alone. So freezing under pressure, it turns out, was never one single thing with one single universal fix. A demanding mental task fails because pressure-driven worry quietly eats into the working memory you actually need to hold the problem in mind while you solve it. A well-practiced physical skill fails for the opposite reason: pressure makes you suddenly, consciously supervise something that was never meant to be consciously supervised in the first place. Both are your brain temporarily reallocating its own limited resources under acute stress. Neither is a character flaw showing up at the worst possible time. Before a high-stakes mental task, offload whatever you realistically can beforehand. Jot down the key numbers, steps, or names ahead of time, so pressure in the moment has measurably less working memory left to compete for. Before a high-stakes physical or practiced performance, do close to the opposite. Resist the strong urge to consciously narrate your own technique step by step in the moment, and let the trained automaticity that got you there in the first place run the show without your supervision. Same underlying stress response driving both. Two genuinely different specific things to actually do about it, depending on which one you're facing. You knew it an hour ago, and you'll know it again 10 minutes from now. Your brain didn't forget it, it just, for one specific moment under real pressure, prioritized something faster.